what sort of changes? Okay, because it's time for Miami to actually, they got to make some changes, right? They've got to make another adjustment. What's the next move for them? Do you guys think, or is it just a matter of play better? I mean, are we at that point where these two teams, like, strategically, there are no countered moves? It's just you got to play better. Jimmy's got to play better. Bam's got to play better.
I
I think
don't
it's
think
some of that. Oh, go ahead, Will.
Go ahead.
I don't think we're at that point where it's just, hey, there are no more moves. I mean, I for one would like to see Cody Zeller not play at all. And I think, I honestly, when Jokic goes out, I'd go small with Highsmith. I thought he's been pretty good for them in this playoff run in the limited minutes he plays, and then he doesn't play a game. And I think that's something there that I think I'd rather go with him in that instance instead of going with Zeller. I think it's just, he giveth and taketh away. One good play on the other end is a turnover on the next play. And it's just like so many different things like that from him. And I think that's something I would start with. I think they need to trust their offense and their continuity in their offense more and continue to stay with it. We're not making shots. All right, run it again. It's like Novocaine, man. Just give it time. It always works kind of deal, and go with it.
I think that would probably be my last night. I think in the first quarter, we were noticing that both teams were sort of riding their two main guys, and we're wondering. I was wondering more from the standpoint of Murray, especially because he's a guy who has looked tired later in games at times. But both teams really, like, the Miami's offense was very much just like Jimmy Bam pick and roll over and over again. And I think they need to a little bit better balance of getting some of those, those split cuts, those fake DHOs, those small exchanges that gave Denver some trouble in game two. Just a little better balance of that. And then, yeah, I think they need more, especially from Jimmy. I think we haven't really seen much of a Jimmy, quote unquote, Jimmy game in a while. There was one play in the first half where he kind of hit Jokic with a hesitation and then exploded to the basket. And we were like, oh, maybe he's got something tonight. And I'm not sure he had another really explosive play offensively other than that.
And it's just so important. And I just think, again, this is like the ankle injury and stuff kind of beginning to hit him a little bit. And I think that's one of those things where, like, they're not going to win if Jimmy's going to be kind of passive Jimmy. And there are times where he's passing up on layups to make kick out plays on where earlier in the playoffs he'd get into a guy's body and draw a foul. So I think that's kind of the important thing to watch for in game 4 is what kind of aggression we're getting from Jimmy.
Well, I took a look real quick while you guys were talking there at Jimmy's stats since he hurt his ankle. Shooting 41% from the field, 31% from three. I mean, on less than 3 attempts a game, only 23 points. Now, at the beginning of the playoffs, when he, did the Jimmy Butler thing where we were all calling him Michael Jordan, it was only, a few games, but he was shooting like 60% and then 43% from three. I mean, it was just, his shot has just completely dropped off. And you can see it, actually. It looks like he doesn't have a lot of lift. It's very flat. I mean, ankle, look, and I've been the guy saying this from the mountaintop since I started doing this job. We treat ankle injuries very unrealistically when it comes to NBA players. I mean, he missed one game for an ankle injury that would likely put a normal human being out for like 6 weeks.
Well, none of these dudes are normal human beings.
Absolutely. Right. Like, so, it's not surprising to me that he doesn't have it, especially late in these games. Like, you can just see it. It's just, and so Denver being more disciplined, not biting on those pump fakes. I mean, it's taking away options for him. He does so much of his decision-making mid pump fake. He makes passes that way, draws fouls that way. And that's not there anymore because I just don't think that they're as worried about it.
And to get back to where we started, this is why we thought this was a bad matchup for Miami to begin with, is because Denver's so big. Like, there's stuff he could do to anyone else he's played in the playoffs where, all right, shots not falling, I'm just going to bully you. He's not bullying Aaron Gordon. That's just not.
He's not bullying Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray is big enough and stout enough that he can hold up to it. I mean, this is like, there isn't really a physical mismatch that Jimmy Butler can take advantage of like he could in previous series. I mean, Derek White couldn't hold up to this, but Murray is pretty thick. Like he's actually he did a good job. Like for Murray, it's about will he fight every single time, right? It's not a question of can he do it. It's will he. And he did it. I thought he did a good job in the second half, but I wonder how much of that is that ankle with Jimmy. And we'll never find out because it's Jimmy Butler. And that actually, I respect that a lot.
You got to buy the $100 cup of coffee in order to find out.
You do wonder though, like there's times where it's like you get like they get a situation where Christian Brown gets switched on to him and you're, oh boy. And then Jimmy gets into like his pivot bag and Christian Brown is just staying solid, keeping his hands back. Is that Christian Brown playing good disciplined defense? Yeah. If Jimmy was feeling a little bit better, if he had a little more bounce, if he had a little more explosiveness, could he slither by? Could he explode upwards instead of doing all these pump fakes and pivots? Maybe. But it's still, still credit again for Denver for not overreacting and not slapping at the ball and not giving away the cheap fouls that a guy who's maybe struggling with his jump shot can feast on.
We talk about Miami and their conditioning. Hey, the Nuggets, those guys stay in the weight room. I mean, they really do. Like Christian Brown, you can see the strength that he's got. I mean, I talked about Jamal Murray and Jokic might be the strongest guy in the league. Like when people talk about having to defend him inside. So they're able to match some of that physicality. And we don't think about it because, they play such a alluring offensive style. And we tend to think those guys are soft, but man, that team is tough.